Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a massive, truly ambitious philanthropic project that set out to build 10 schools across the globe in places like Ghana, Mexico, Ecuador, the US, and India. But, what we're really going to discover here is that building a school is almost never just about laying down bricks and mortar. It's so much bigger than that. By looking at these real-world examples, we're going to reveal the true, holistic nature of the global education crisis. We'll see exactly what it takes to not just build a classroom, but to build an entire ecosystem where students can actually thrive. So, let's quickly map out our agenda. We'll kick things off with the global education crisis, then move to beyond the classroom walls, adapting to extreme environments, safe passage to education, and finally wrap it up with the generational impact. All right, Section 1, the global education crisis, where we really need to frame the massive scale of this problem. Because we absolutely must establish the immense scale of this issue before we even look at the specific interventions. It is so easy to just take a local neighborhood school for granted, right? But globally, the reality is starkly different. Right now, over 200 million children sadly do not have access to a safe school. 200 million! That staggering figure makes this 10-school project a completely vital, fascinating case study in how to actually fight back on a community level. It forces us to ask, how on earth do you even begin to chip away at a problem that massive? Which leads us to Section 2, beyond the classroom walls, or really, why a building just isn't enough. It's absolutely critical to understand that a brand new physical building is completely useless if the students' basic physiological needs are ignored. What good is a new classroom if the students are just too sick to learn? We see a really harsh reality of this in a specific community in Ghana. The team actually arrived to find a school so incredibly dangerous and dilapidated that it was ordered by government officials to be torn down. But here's the crazy part. The threat of a collapsing roof wasn't even the community's most pressing danger. There was this immediate, desperate need for health interventions right alongside education. For over a decade, an entire village relied on a local river for their water. And as a direct result, nearly 80% of their population, kids included, had parasitic worms in their intestines. You literally cannot teach a child who is suffering from parasites. So, alongside the new school, the project drilled a brand new solar-powered well, providing clean water not just for the school, but for over 1,000 people in the surrounding community. So the crucial point here is that solving education really means building a holistic ecosystem. Just look at this step-by-step transformation in Ghana. They didn't just replace a dangerous building. They built plumbing and bathrooms so kids weren't forced to go in the woods. They built a fully functioning kitchen to provide a guaranteed free lunch for every student every single school day for the next 5 years. They even built apartments for the teachers. The principal actually noted that previously, teachers were spending an hour a day driving and a third of their entire salary just commuting to work. A school is really only as strong as the community and the educators supporting it. And the results of this holistic approach? They are immediate and completely measurable. By just implementing that daily free lunch program, school attendance shot up 10%, and it continues climbing. It's absolute proof that food security is foundational to education. Kids will show up when they know for sure they're going to be fed and kept safe. Moving right along to Section 3, adapting to extreme environments, looking at custom solutions for unique geographic challenges. Because what works in one hemisphere might fail entirely in another, right? A cookie-cutter school simply does not work everywhere. The environment absolutely dictates the blueprint. To even reach a community deep in the Ecuadorian jungle, the team had to take 2 planes, a 3-hour boat ride, and off-road for an hour and a half. Meanwhile, in the United States, the barrier wasn't geographic isolation at all, but rather the internal layout of traditional classrooms just not serving neurodivergent minds. Let's look a bit closer at these specific adaptations. This quote brilliantly illustrates the severe spatial limitations the team encountered in Mexico. An entire town was sharing a single, cramped school from middle school all the way through high school. The lack of space was so extreme that the principal was literally forced to operate out of her vehicle for a decade. Just imagine that for a second. The solution? Building the town's very first dedicated high school from the ground up, complete with next-gen concrete reinforced walls, a soccer field, and finally, a real dedicated office for the principal. Now, down in the Ecuadorian rainforest, the environmental challenge was the weather itself. The old schools used tin roofs, which made it absolutely impossible to hear anyone speak when the heavy rains came. And worse, the floodwaters would actually rise above the students' knees. By replacing those weathered structures with elevated concrete schools, the rain no longer dictates whether or not over 50 kids can get their education. It's dry, it's quiet, and most importantly, it's safe. Conversely, at Hope Creek Academy in the US, the required adaptation meant moving out of the traditional classroom entirely. Data actually shows that neurodivergent students often excel in natural wilderness environments rather than being cramped inside a room. So, teaming up with Lowe's volunteers, they built an earthly outdoor playground and learning center. It's an environment that provides them the space for real imagination and natural play, proving that school definitely doesn't always mean four walls and a desk. Okay, Section 4, Safe Passage to Education, or how we go about overcoming the journey to the classroom. Even with the perfect, customized building, whether it's elevated concrete or a sprawling high school, we still have to solve the critical logistics of safely getting the children to those buildings in the first place. Forget about learning, that's just dangerous. This quote perfectly captures the reality of those knee-high floodwaters we just talked about in Ecuador. It serves as a really stark reminder that sometimes the physical commute is the single greatest barrier to a child's learning. To ensure those newly built, elevated jungle schools in Ecuador were actually accessible, the team had to look at the community's surrounding infrastructure. They completely replaced a terrifying, dangerous wooden bridge that the kids use daily, swapping it out for a highly secure metal one. Thankfully, hundreds of students will never have to start their school day in a state of fear again. Over in India, the team faced a school so overcrowded that over 400 students were crammed into just 6 rooms. They solved the space issue by building a massive, brand-new 3-story school. But they quickly realized many of these kids were walking over an hour in the pitch dark on incredibly busy, dangerous roads just to get there. The ultimate solution? Gifting the school a dedicated school bus. As local educators noted, this was a total game changer for safety, especially shielding the female students during those really long commutes. Furthermore, providing a safe, accessible school isn't just about academic learning. It directly combats severe, systemic societal issues. In places like Ghana, building a safe school acts as a stronghold against children being forced into illegal child labor farms. It's a heavy reality, but when kids have a safe place to go, with guaranteed food and clean water, they are actively protected from exploitation. And that brings us to Section 5, the generational impact, where we're measuring the massive scale of change. We've seen the micro-interventions, the wells, the bridges, the meals. Now let's look at the macro-level numbers to understand the massive scale of change this logistical undertaking has created. This single initiative invested over $3 million to build these 10 schools across the world. And over time, these specialized facilities will educate, feed, and safeguard more than 18,000 students. 18,000 lives fundamentally altered because their communities now have the infrastructure to actually support them. Which leads perfectly to this quote from the project. We're not here to check boxes and build schools. We're here to fundamentally change the lives of the communities. This is really the ultimate takeaway of our explainer today. True philanthropic development requires fundamentally transforming a community's access to basic human rights: water, food, safe transit, and specialized care. So I leave you with this final thought to ponder. If we now possess the localized blueprints for how to holistically support a community's education, whether that means elevated structures in a rainforest or solar wells in a rural village, what will it take for the world to actually scale these efforts? How can we adapt these very methods to finally reach the rest of those 200 million children still waiting for a safe place to learn? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this sparks some incredible ideas for you.